Imagine a world where your body is a patchwork of spare parts, pieces swapped out, upgraded, recycled, and reinvented. A world where scientists test artificial limbs on crash test dummies, where surgeons practice on human heads shipped across states, and where the boundary between the impossible and the medically miraculous gets pushed a little further every day. This isn't science fiction. This is real life. This is the strange, hilarious, and deeply human world Mary Roach explores in Replaceable You, Adventures in Human Anatomy. Today, we're diving into her journey through the labs, morgues, operating rooms, and scientific frontiers where human bodies become canvases for innovation. A place where science meets absurdity, where tragedy gives birth to breakthroughs, and where curiosity finds answers no textbook would dare reveal. So buckle up. Because this is not your ordinary anatomy lesson. This is a tour inside the body, through the eyes of the quirkiest science journalist alive. Let's begin. The strange business of body upgrades. Mary Roach starts with a simple question. How replaceable are we? Artificial organs, prosthetics, implants, these aren't just tools of modern medicine. They're stories of trial, error, and moments of brilliance. And Mary Roach, armed with her signature wit, dives into the weirdest corners of this world. She visits labs where limbs and joints are tested not on humans, but on bizarre mechanical rigs that simulate years of wear in weeks. Imagine a robot chewing on fake noses. Or a machine bending knees 10 million times to see if they'll survive a lifetime of use. These scenes feel almost cartoonish, but they're real. And Roach brings them to life with humor and awe. She meets scientists who dedicate their entire careers to studying the friction between skin and prosthetic sockets. People who obsess over the scent of synthetic body parts. Researchers who spend decades perfecting artificial eyeballs, not for function, but for aesthetic honesty, so they don't creep people out. Because in the world of replacement body parts, realism matters. A fake ear should look like a real ear, even up close. A prosthetic hand shouldn't feel like cold rubber. And dentures should not fall out when someone sneezes. In this opening section, Roach highlights one fundamental truth. Our bodies are fragile, ridiculous, brilliant machines, and we've spent centuries trying to fix them with equal parts genius and absurdity. The evolution of prosthetics, from wood and iron to silicone and steel. Roach takes us back in time to explore how prosthetics evolved, from ancient Egyptians with carved wooden toes to medieval knights with iron limbs that doubled as weapons. But the real fun begins in the modern era. She interviews prosthetic designers who think like artists and engineers simultaneously. They debate questions like, should a prosthetic hand grip softly like human flesh or firmly like metal pliers? Should prosthetics be realistic or proudly artificial? Can robotic limbs feel emotion even if the person using them cannot? The emotional angle hits hard here. Roach speaks with amputees who describe prosthetics not just as tools, but as extensions of their will and identity. People who request limbs painted with flames, electric blue finishes, and superhero logos. Because replacement parts are not just functional, they're personal. She shows us competitions where prosthetic users run, climb, and even dance, demonstrating how far this field has come. But she also shows how difficult the journey has been: discomfort, weight issues, skin irritation, and emotional adjustment. It's a human story wrapped inside a technological one. When science gets weird, test subjects, crash dummies, and headless experiments. One of the most bizarre and captivating chapters in Roach's exploration is the world of experimental testing. Here, she takes us inside facilities that feel straight out of a sci-fi horror movie. Crash test dummies get fitted with organs, real ones, to test the impact of forces on human anatomy. AKA simulated trauma victims. Elsewhere, researchers test new airway devices using severed human heads donated to science. It's macabre, but Roach handles it with sensitivity and humor, making it accessible without diminishing the respect owed to donors. She describes halls lined with jars of prosthetic noses and shelves of artificial eyelids. Rooms filled with half-finished silicone limbs that look disturbingly lifelike. And scientists who spend their lunch breaks solving problems like: how do we stop the eyeball from drying out during a burn simulation? It's bizarre. It's unsettling. It's brilliant. Because behind every strange experiment is a purpose. To save lives. To understand trauma. To build better, safer replacement parts. Roach's gift is turning the grotesque into something fascinating. Artificial organs, the quest for immortality. Now we step into one of the most emotionally powerful parts of the book, the race to build artificial organs. Roach visits labs where artificial hearts beat on metal stands, where blood, synthetic or donated, flows through transparent arteries engineered to mimic the human body. These are the laboratories where life-saving innovation is born. She shows the heartbreaking reality behind organ shortages. Thousands wait for heart, kidney, and liver transplants every year, but donors are few. Artificial organs are our scientific attempt to bridge that gap. Some stories Roach tells include the first clunky, noisy artificial hearts that broke down like old washing machines. Engineers who argue over whether artificial organs should mimic nature or improve upon it. The emotional testimonies of patients who lived months, or years, on artificial hearts. And then there are the failures. The heartbreaking moments where hope meets reality, where prototypes collapse under pressure, and where scientists realize they must start again. Through all of this, Roach maintains a sense of optimism. She shows how far we've come, and how close we are to breakthroughs that might one day make replacement organs as common as replacement tires. Limbs that feel, skins that heal, faces that live again. Here, Roach dives into the art and science of replacing not just internal organs, but the external parts that shape our identity, faces, skin, and sensory organs. She introduces us to face transplant surgeons who perform operations lasting 20+ hours. Skin graft researchers who grow sheets of living tissue like botanical gardens. Engineers creating prosthetic limbs with built-in sensory feedback. Artists who specialize in facial prosthetics so realistic they fool the human eye. One of the most emotional stories is about burn victims receiving new skin, sometimes grown from their own cells, sometimes donated. The process is long and painful, but the results are transformative. Another major highlight is the development of prosthetics that restore touch. Imagine a robotic hand that lets you feel the warmth of someone's palm. Or a leg that tells you whether you're stepping on sand or stone. This is not science fiction anymore. Scientists are already close. Roach captures the wonder, horror, and hope of these experiments with remarkable balance. The ethics of replacement: how far should we go? This section takes a philosophical turn. Roach raises questions that force the reader, and now the viewer, to think deeply. If we replace too much of ourselves, are we still human? Should enhancements be allowed, or only restorations? What happens when artificial parts become better than organic ones? Who gets access to cutting-edge prosthetics, the wealthy or everyone? She interviews ethicists, doctors, and patients to uncover a wide range of perspectives. Some believe the human body is sacred and shouldn't be modified beyond necessity. Others see the future of humanity as a hybrid of biology and technology, cyborgs in the literal sense. The debate is fascinating, and Roach never takes a side. She presents the complexities with humor and respect, letting the reader form their own conclusions. The people behind the science. Throughout her journey, Roach encounters characters who feel like they stepped out of a novel. The engineer who treats artificial limbs like fashion accessories. The surgeon who moonlights as a sculptor. The prosthetic eye painter who treats each iris like a masterpiece. The crash test expert who talks to dummies like old friends. The bioethicist who debates human identity over coffee and pastries. These people make the story. They're passionate, quirky, brilliant, and deeply dedicated. Roach uses their voices to show that science is a profoundly human endeavor, driven by curiosity, compassion, and creativity. The future of replaceable humans. Roach ends with a vision of the future, one that's equal parts exciting and unsettling. Imagine organs printed with 3D bioprinters. Limbs upgraded like smartphone models. Artificial blood that never expires. Tissue regeneration that heals wounds in hours. Human-machine integration allowing the blind to see and the paralyzed to move. Faces reconstructed perfectly using biocompatible scaffolds. Artificial skin that senses touch, temperature, and pain. This isn't speculation. These technologies exist today, in prototypes and early stages. Roach argues that the next 50 years will redefine what it means to be human. We might become stronger, healthier, longer-lived, and more reliant on engineered parts than ever before. And yet, throughout all of this, she insists on one thing. What makes us human isn't our parts. It's our experiences, our choices, and our stories. Even if everything in our body becomes replaceable, our humanity remains irreplaceable. In the end, Replaceable You is not a book about technology. It's a book about people. People who stitched together artificial limbs to rebuild lives. People who donated their bodies so others might live. People who dedicate their careers to improving the lives of strangers. And people who face the unimaginable and find hope in innovation. Mary Roach has a gift for taking the macabre and making it meaningful. For turning cold science into warm stories. For revealing that beneath all our implants, prosthetics, and artificial upgrades, we are still beautifully, vulnerably human. So the next time you marvel at medical miracles, remember the countless experiments, the failures, the laughter, the ethics debates, and the human determination behind each one. We are fragile. We are replaceable. We are resilient. And above all, we are endlessly fascinating. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Replaceable You, make sure to hit that like button. It tells the algorithm that this story is worth sharing. And if you know someone who loves science, storytelling, or the brilliantly weird world inside the human body, go ahead and share this video with them. For more book summaries, more fascinating discoveries, and more journeys into the unexpected, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notifications, so you never miss a new video. Thank you for watching, and as always, stay curious.